Hello, everyone. I'm Irshad Saifi, your host to this podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Mahadeva. She is joining us from United States. Welcome, Dr. Mahadeva. Would you like to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Irshad, for having me. This is really exciting. Yes, of course. So I'm Dr. Mahadeva, as you said. I'm originally from Berlin, where I studied medicine, and then came here, did all my training, internal medicine and specialty training in palliative care. I have been practicing as a physician for the past 20 years in two countries. So some in Germany. Most of my practice has been here in the US in urban and rural hospitals. And in the course of that, I've also taught residents through University of Nevada, Las Vegas as their assistant professor, which was a very exciting time. Absolutely loved it,
Yeah,
teaching my
I,
other passion other than medicine.
I can guess that from
Um,
your smile.
Lights up. And along the way, I decided to embark on a little bit of a different path, stepping outside of medicine, which is where I found Stanford Lead, which I
Hmm.
completed 2021, 22. In the course of that, I started to develop my business idea that I made a reality last October, actually, and founded my company Vivo.
Wow.
So right now I work as a hospitalist in one of our urban hospitals here in Reno. And on the side, parallel to that, I'm also running my company. So hopefully I will transition to that eventually full time.
Wow, that's a lot you're doing being a healthcare professional. So, Dr. Mahadeva, you mentioned that you were born in Germany and then you got
Mhm.
transitioned to US. Uh, is your story similar to Arnold when he saw a magazine someday and decided that, look, this is the place where I really want to be and become a very successful person? How did you move to United States?
You're going to laugh at this story. So when I was a kid in East Germany, we watched Star Trek, we watched Bonanza, things like that.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I got to see what Lake Tahoe looks like. And I thought, oh my God, that's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I wanna check that out. So when it came time to do a rotation abroad, which in medical school or at university in general in Europe, it's very common
Hmm.
for students to, go abroad, do some exchange programs. I pulled up a map of the US. I put some pins here and there, and I picked some places that I thought were cool to see. Of course, Reno, right next to Tahoe.
Yeah.
I put a pin in that. I applied, and Reno called me back and said, "Yeah, you can rotate here." So when I came to do my internal medicine rotation here, I worked really hard because I wanted to learn as much as I could. And they said, "My gosh, you're really amazing. We would like for you to apply to residency when you're ready with medical school and you're done with that." So it so happened that I also fell in love. I got married, and then I applied to residency here, and I've just been in Reno ever since. I so much fell in love with it. This is my home base, my charging station.
Wow.
Um, and it's been really great to have found a group of colleagues here as well that make practicing medicine just
Hmm.
absolutely rewarding and just like you're part of a really great team. So
Interesting. That's great to hear.
it's
Now, when
bonanza.
you did this, one of the thing you mentioned about you really worked very hard. Is that really a key to success for you?
For me, it's always been that, yes. So strangely, when I was really little, I always
Uh-huh.
felt that people always thought, I'm kind of slow because, well, slow because I was one of those kids that takes a long time to process things. And
Mm.
so I would just take in a lot of information, take my time, make a decision, and then act. So it was that really made me think I have to work harder than everyone else in order to be similar to everyone else. And it just stuck. So for me, just working hard is just, that's just who I am. I always want to do a really good job. And of course, eventually I learned that, you know, I can excel pretty well. I think
Yeah.
my life is, it's borne witness to that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I've internalized the hard work. And if it's work that I really enjoy, I think for me, there's really no such thing as really hard work. Of
Uh-huh.
course, blood, sweat, and tears, absolutely. But it's for me, it's just something to about giving back. It's not just for my own gain, it's to do something, build something, and create something that others benefit from as well. Whether it's talking to a patient and really tailoring their treatment to them and really understand where they're coming from, it takes a little bit of an extra,
Yeah.
little extra mile sometimes. Or whether it's building a company that helps people reverse prediabetes. So it
Mm,
really doesn't matter. It's who I am.
interesting. So, Dr. Mahadeva, tell me, out of this entire experience, were there any key moments that you would want to share which really changed you? Be it in maybe in college or in during the working dealing with the patients. I mean, do you
Mhm.
recall any moment that completely changed you and because of which you are what you are today?
There were several. I'm not
Hmm.
going to go through all of them. I'm going
Yeah,
to pick the most significant one for you.
sure.
And that was, I was in residency and going through a really difficult divorce at the time. And I was very lonely. I felt very alone. I felt like, gosh, everything is going to fall apart. My schedule was horrible. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. And it was just bad. And in all of that, I got very close to sleeping pills to the point that I had a
Oops.
real problem with sleeping pills. It was the only way that I could escape. And my one defining moment really was where I thought, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to do something about it now. And I told myself that, you know what, there's only one choice because I was never going to leave my daughter alone in this world. So I went ahead and I got help, and I found like wow the most amazing support actually. So once I started going out and saying I want to grow, I want to be better,
Hmm.
there's something that I'm not doing that I need to be doing to overcome it, and I found all that support actually among doctors.
Uh-huh.
um, there's there's a lot of issues with that in the medical field. We don't talk about it much, and we're
Hmm.
starting to verbalize it more because of the pressures that the job puts on us. And there's, of course, always the fear of, oh, is the board going to do something horrible to me? Things like that.
Yeah.
So, out of that, just being on a path of recovery since then, it's been over 15 years. It's turned into this personal growth journey that just, every lesson has stuck with me. Every time there was a roadblock, I just thought, this is a learning opportunity. Before I may or may not have seen it that way, but it changed my perspective completely on any kind of difficulty. And the other thing that was really important was it really helped me just sharpen my empathy as well.
Hmm.
I mean, I always had a lot of empathy for patients and, listen to their story and you kind of go, oh, wow, that's terrible. How can I help? And all of a sudden it becomes more of this visceral connection that you feel,
Hmm.
because you can put yourself in their shoes and say, holy crap, I've been there too. And you can share that with them. And suddenly they also don't feel alone. They feel like suddenly there's someone who really makes an effort to understand them. And it's changed completely how I've been able to interact with patients,
Mm-hmm.
how we've been able to connect, and out of that, how they've actually gained more trust and said, hey, here's someone who's human. And this is someone I can listen to and trust, and I can have no fear in asking questions.
Yeah. So, I would say the story that you just mentioned, I think this was truly inspirational because many people do go through with that situation. Some people are able to come back even much stronger, like in your case, you have done, but not everybody dares to really come back so strongly. So I
Yeah.
must hats off to you for all of that struggle that
Hmm.
you have done. And congratulations for
Thank you.
overcoming from that and then really
Yeah.
becoming what you are. Um, One of the thing, Dr. Mahadeva, I have noticed about you, particularly, you have been recently awarded in Los Angeles for a very prestigious award. Sorry, in the was it Las
Yeah.
Vegas?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, sorry, yeah. So in
No
Las
worries.
Vegas, you were recently awarded with a very prestigious award. And one of the other thing that I've noticed, you have also done the Stanford Lead. You also go and speak about technologies a lot, which is quite uncommon. I do interact with a lot of doctors. They are absolutely shy away from technology. They are also shy away from some of these leadership things. Um, so, what is it that you, being a doctor, you're also talking about leadership? You have spent your time in the leadership. You're also spending time on technology. You're also learning new ways of doing things. How do you manage? And at the same time, you also have your family. So, how do you manage
Hmm.
all of these things? Because when I go and talk to medical professionals, they say, look, guys, we don't have time. We
Yeah.
don't understand technology. That's completely a different world. We don't understand management. That's a different world altogether. So, how do you
Hmm.
manage all of these things?
I'm very mindful with how I use my time
Mm-hmm.
because so this question comes up a lot. And
Haha,
you're
I'm sure.
probably the 100th person who's asked me that. My colleagues ask me, my gosh, Dr. Mahadeva, what's your secret? That's my
Absolutely.
secret. So the foundation for that is that the job that I do every day as a physician is something that I've learned to do extremely well. And
Mm,
I don't just say that because, well, of course, well, I'm good. It's because I've gotten that over the years from so many people that said, you're just really good, you're a really excellent physician. So I'm just
mm,
saying what other people are telling me. And it becomes second nature. And I'm very organized, and I lay out exactly, for example, when I work someone up for a certain disease, I have exactly laid out what I need to do in order to get the diagnosis right, do the evaluation correctly, get the differential diagnosis correctly to make sure I don't miss anything.
yeah.
So I have a very complex and very well-developed system for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that took a lot of time. That took me several years to get to where I am today, where I can say, oh, yeah, complex case. My colleagues always say, well, we'll wait till Dr. Mahadeva gets here. She can figure this out.
Interesting.
It's late in the evening. She'll be here at 6. It'll be fine.
Uh-huh.
Um, and because I'm at that point where I wanted to be, that was always my goal. I can now say, I have a little extra time. But
Mm.
then I'm one of those nerdy people. My brain never stops. I'm very, very curious and I want to know more. I want to know, why things are happening, how they're happening, how
Mm-hmm.
can I do it, and how can I use it for myself? And I'm also a dreamer. I like to dream.
Yeah.
I like to dream big, and I like to be practical about it and say, what do I have to do in order to get there? So that's the other part that comes in, dreaming and then coming up with a way to make it a reality.
Uh-huh.
And so kind of within the time that I have left, other than medicine,
Uh-huh.
I'm very conscious about how I use that time to do something else.
That's interesting. So, and at the same time, you mentioned early on that you're also working on a startup. You have a startup which you're working on. So that
Mhm.
also requires significant amount of time. So I'm
Yes,
sure you are managing all of that well. And I must say that and wish you all the best in all the endeavors that you're doing. Um,
thank you.
The other thing, Dr. Mahadeva, we are seeing these days about the artificial intelligence, and more specifically, since the generative AI has come in, people are talking about a lot of use case. Now, in healthcare, particularly, people are really talking about changing the healthcare by using the artificial intelligence in the days to come. We have
Hmm.
seen some bit of an impact already of artificial intelligence in the healthcare in the form of robotics surgery, and
Hmm.
the digitization happened very early on, wherein all of those reports comes online, people get the notification. So that phase of digitization is over. Then
Hmm.
came the robotics, that is also done. Now we are talking about generative AI. So since you have been practicing, you're also a forward looking dreamer. What do you think about this particular technology and how this could have a potential of reshaping the healthcare?
I think that's a really important point to discuss and to
Uh-huh.
lay out there into the world. Um, so going forward, we have AI that we can use as a really powerful tool for more of an augmented intelligence.
Hmm.
Like, people hear artificial intelligence, AI, and they go, oh my God, they throw their hands up, they
Yeah.
run away, and they say, oh God, I don't want to hear about it. I'm slightly exaggerating, but only a little.
Uh-huh.
But what you have is now an analytical tool, and I think that is really important to stress that it's a tool to do analysis of large data, of complex data, something that right now, not using AI, would take us and does take us a very long time.
Hmm.
Um, and so what you have is a tool that if you applied it to claims processing, which is, you know, probably the best entry point in healthcare because it's more of a lower risk
Yeah.
in a really high risk industry. And claims processing is really important.
Yeah. It takes a lot of
Our
time.
Yes, it takes a huge amount of time. There's a huge amount of back and forth, huge
True.
time wasters with billing, with this, with that, pre-authorizations, getting patients. I mean, and so then it falls, the dominoes fall when it comes
Yeah.
to scheduling procedures, things like that. And here now you have a tool that's very powerful to help you organize it better, optimize your workflows, and actually get your maximum value out of what you can bill for, what you can help with the patient, or
Hmm.
can help the patient with, and for the healthcare organization to get their maximum payments,
Yeah.
and for the insurance companies as well, so you reduce waste, you make it more efficient, and you make it more
Yeah.
effective. When you look further, when you go into clinical practice, again, you have a lot of complex data. You have needs for analysis for prediction tools. Let's say someone with complex cancer history. We do have some of those already, but we can always improve upon them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, Imaging screening tools, things like that, predictors for heart failure, arrhythmias, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, So right now you have to sit and do all that data
Yeah.
crunching yourself.
Yeah.
And in this case, you streamline it, you have a much better analysis tool if you understand how to program it correctly, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the expert comes in, and that's why physicians need to be knowledgeable about it. Because when you design these clinical tools, if you don't know what that tool actually does or
Hmm.
how it does it, it's it's pretty useless.
Yeah.
And when they're being programmed, you have the data scientists, you have the tech developers and whatnot. They're not subject matter experts in medicine. That's where the physician has to come in and say, "Oh, this is clinically relevant." For example, let's say you have a patient with heart failure who also has an arrhythmia called atrial fibrillation. Um, if the tool just tells you, "Oh, they're at high risk for more AFib,"
Yeah.
well, yeah, I know that. But what's relevant is to actually go ahead and calculate that risk over certain periods of time, 6 months risk, 3-year risk, lifetime risk, whatever, stroke risk, and so
Hmm.
on.
Hmm.
Um, so understanding it as a tool that augments our capability to get complex data aggregates sorted and understood and get some meaningful data out of it,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's really important. And then the other side is when it comes to patients, and I think that's where it will make a huge impact in healthcare. That patients now have the opportunity to, you know, basically carry their own portal around.
Yeah.
Um, I think the technology, even with security, is going to go to a point where you have a decentralized data security basis for your health records. And then those patients also will have access to all their data in real time
Sure.
and have
You
have it
mean
analyzed as
having
well.
blockchain at some point in time? Yeah,
Exactly,
truly. It will be
exactly. Which, yeah, which
great.
is more secure than
Yeah, yeah,
what we're doing now.
yeah.
Because hospitals are hijacked every day with
Correct.
ransomware for these things.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all of these greater insights and your view with respect to how the healthcare industry is going to shape up. This is truly amazing. And that's where we have an interesting guest in the podcast. Okay. Um,
she loves publicity.
yeah. Amazing. With this, Dr. Mahadeva, one last question I have is for our some of our viewers who are maybe professionals or healthcare professionals or students.
Mhm.
What are those 2, 3 tips that you would want to give them to succeed? And are there
Mhm.
any 2, 3 tips that you would like them to avoid in order to be successful?
Hmm. Well, I've made a longer list.
Aha. Okay, please go ahead.
But I think the first thing is to really define what success means to you
Mm-hmm.
and really dig deep inside of, what's in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
not just what other people expect you to do. And I think that's really important, um, to define success for yourself that way. What if nothing else matters? What would you do if you couldn't fail?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, then the other thing that is really important, instead of having the very common yes, but attitude, kind of go with a yes, and attitude.
Mm-hmm.
If you start practicing that more, you will find that you discover some interesting things like completely new perspectives.
Yeah.
Um, really, that really draws out the possibilities. And you don't have to follow all these possibilities, but just having a discussion with a yes and um, leads to much greater insights, ideas, and eventually innovations. So those definitely are absolute musts. Of course, always operate with integrity no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Um, just to have a good set of values, ethics, you have to follow them no matter what. You
Hmm.
can't deviate from that. And I find that the people that do,
I agree.
it's,
100% agree with you on
yeah,
that.
yeah. Um, and just look outside of your field too. You learn
Hmm.
about different things. The world is really interesting. Yeah, I read stuff about, geology and history and
Wow.
quantum physics and
Wow.
mathematical proofs, whatever pops up.
Yeah.
Those things are fascinating. I may not totally understand it, but
Hmm.
it's just it's just great to see what other fields do. And that too actually can give you really good ideas about, oh my gosh, I just had this idea of how we can combine it with what we're doing here, and you come up with
Wow.
something really great. And of course, always take care of yourself.
That's
Self-care
the key.
often falls by the wayside.
Yeah.
And it's quite shocking how
Mhm.
a lot of my colleagues, they just push themselves, and you just wish that, my gosh, just treat yourself like someone you love. That would be really
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah. Yeah,
all
of
of these with
course.
us. Yeah. Good. So with this, I think we have come to an end of this podcast. Let me thanks Dr. Mahadeva for sharing all their greater insights pertaining to the life journey, to technology and innovation, and also giving us few tips. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahadeva, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really great.
Thank you.